Once upon a time, in the depth of winter, a gentle queen sat by her ebony window sewing. When she pricked her finger, a drop of red blood fell onto the white snow outside, and she wished for a child as fair and pure as that snowy scene. Soon after, the queen's wish came true. She gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. They named her Snow White, but the joy was brief, for the queen grew weak and passed away. In time, the king married again. His new queen was very beautiful, but also proud and cold. She cared greatly for her own beauty. Each day, the proud new queen stood before her magic mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror always replied, "You, O queen, are the fairest of all." One morning, when the queen asked her question, the mirror answered, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true, but Snow White is even fairer than you." The queen trembled with jealousy. In a cold voice, the queen commanded her huntsman, "Take Snow White into the forest and do not let her return." The huntsman bowed his head, shaken by the cruel order. Deep in the forest, the huntsman could not harm Snow White. "Run, child," he whispered softly. "Run far and never return." Terrified, Snow White fled into the trees. Snow White ran as fast as she could, stumbling over stones and pushing through thorns. The great forest grew darker as evening began to fall. At last, just as dusk settled, Snow White saw a tiny house hidden among the trees. Exhausted, she stepped toward it, hoping for a place to rest. Inside, everything was small but neat. On a little table stood 7 tiny plates and cups, and along the wall were 7 tiny beds with colorful quilts. Because she was so hungry, Snow White ate a few vegetables and a little bread from each tiny plate, and from every small cup she drank just a sip of milk. After eating, she tried each little bed in turn. At last, she found one that suited her, lay down, and fell fast asleep. That night, the 7 dwarves came home from the mountains. As soon as they stepped inside, they saw that someone had been there. They looked around in amazement. "Who has been sitting in my chair?" cried the first. "Who has been eating from my plate?" asked the second. And so each dwarf found his things disturbed. Finally, the 7th dwarf looked at his bed. "Someone is lying in my bed," he cried. The others gathered close and shone their candles on Snow White. "Oh, good heavens," they whispered, "this child is beautiful." The next morning, Snow White awoke to see 7 little dwarves standing around her. She was frightened at first, but they smiled kindly and asked her name. Snow White told them everything, how the queen had ordered her death and how she had run through the forest. The dwarves listened carefully. The dwarves offered her a home. "If you will keep house for us, cook, sew, and keep everything neat, you may stay here, and you shall want for nothing." Snow White gladly agreed. Believing Snow White to be gone forever, the queen stood before her mirror. But the mirror replied, "Snow White beyond the mountains with the 7 dwarves is still 1,000 times fairer than you." The queen's rage grew like fire. In her secret chamber, the queen crafted a perfect red apple, beautiful on the outside but poisoned on one side. She disguised herself as an old peddler woman. The queen reached the dwarves' cottage, disguised as a poor old woman. "A lovely apple for you, dear child," she said. Snow White refused, but the woman cut the apple in 2 and ate the safe half. Seeing the old woman eat her piece, Snow White trusted her. She took a bite of the other half and at once fell to the ground, still and lifeless. When the dwarves returned, they found Snow White lying on the floor, cold and still. They lifted her, spoke to her, and wept, but nothing could wake her. Because she still looked as fresh as if she were alive, they made a transparent glass coffin. With golden letters, they wrote her name and that she was a princess. One day, a prince riding through the forest saw the glass coffin and the beautiful Snow White within. He read the golden letters and felt his heart fill with love. The prince said to the dwarves, "Let me take the coffin with me. I cannot live without seeing Snow White." The dwarves, moved by his devotion, agreed. As the prince's servants carried the coffin, one stumbled over a tree root. The jolt shook loose the piece of poisoned apple stuck in Snow White's throat. She opened her eyes and awoke. Snow White looked around in wonder. The prince said joyfully, "You are with me and you are safe." He told her everything that had happened. Snow White went with the prince to his father's castle, and soon their wedding was held with great joy and splendor. The wicked queen was banished, and Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after.